Welcome in, Star Wars News Net Nation, podcasting, whatever. We're here. Episode 3, it's the return of the king, Miguel himself, for episode 3 of Deep Space Cinema, talking about all things Hollywood. We're going to be talking about Thunderbolts. We're going to be talking about Sinners. And there's a line from Rogue One, Miguel, that kind of sums up, I think, my life right now, but also like this, the distance that we've had between us over the last month as you've been off exploring the galaxy. And it's that scene in Rogue One where right before Cassian and Jin are going off to try to, get the plans for the Death Star, and he turns to Melshi and he's like, make one man, feel like 100, or like make 10 men feel like 100 or whatever. That's kind of like I feel like my life is right now. I think each student is like walking into class and they're like, we're gonna make 10 students feel like 100 as we get through these last 2 weeks of school. They're going nuts. And then, we haven't spoken about movies, Star Wars, anything, life, anything for about about a month, a little over a month maybe. And it feels like it's been 100 days since I've seen your gorgeous face on the screen. So it's good to see you. I am excited to get into this today. We're going to be talking Sinners, which I think is the best movie of the year so far. Not really a high bar to leap over right now, but we could talk about that. But I'm going to throw it to you. Thunderbolts first or Sinners first? Which one are you most excited to talk about? Like, we can go with whichever one you're vibing with.
So first of all, I did not know where you were going to with that Rogue One line. I was not expecting that took a turn and then another turn after that. So okay, congrats on the spin there. So since we've been doing like monthly releases, and I guess we're a bit late for May,
Right.
for April, so we're doing
Right.
first release of May. We can do Sinners first
Okay.
because that's like from April, and then we
Mhm.
just move into Thunderbolts. So okay,
So,
I think I'm gonna let you start with Sinners because
okay.
like we talked a little bit about this, and I think you enjoyed it a bit more than I did. So
Mhm.
I'm just gonna let you go for it.
So I love this movie because it's by no means a perfect film, and I'm perfectly fine like finding things to critique in this film. What I was really excited about was, one, me actually enjoying a film like this, because most of the time I see like something in the horror genre and I kind of shy away from that. But this felt a little bit different, so I thought I'd give it a chance. And Ryan Coogler's awesome, so I wanted to give something that he was doing a chance as well. And I just, the cast in general was intriguing to me. But this story, it's kind of like, do you remember Godzilla? You saw Godzilla -1, and
I did not.
okay, so
I
you
have
never
to
saw
admit that
Godzilla
I
minus one.
did not.
So Godzilla -1 though is like this whole deep character story that just happens to exist in the
Yeah.
world where Godzilla is doing all of his stuff. This movie felt a little similar, where he was very much driving home like this character driven story about what is freedom and power and like all of these integral themes that he was trying to tell. And it just happened to have vampires be the main antagonist and the central point of the story around all of these characters. It didn't feel necessarily like a vampire story, which a lot of these horror movies, it's just very cut and dry, getting away from the demons or whatever. This felt very different and fresh and unique, and it seems like it's been a big win, like overall, in terms of popularity, word of mouth. I think this is going to be just a good stretch run for it as it moves forward. I think it's going to be extremely popular. I'm curious to see whenever it gets on like Max or VOD, what it's going to do. But I was pleasantly surprised by this. He's trying to do a lot, but it feels like he tells every bit of the story that he wants to without it feeling overwhelming for the audience. Like, I did not feel overwhelmed trying to keep up with everything that was going on and all of the different specific things he was trying to say in this movie, which was difficult because this movie tries to do a lot. But Ryan Coogler getting to tell a story that clearly he was very passionate about telling, and being able to do it the way he wanted to, with like kind of like his family of people. He has like these people he likes to work with, and he brought a lot of them in. And I just love getting to enjoy the kind of stories that he tells. So I'm excited to kind of get into it a lot with you. And I'm really surprised by when I left this movie, I was trying to think of different Oscars that this movie could be nominated for because I think it's the best movie of the year so far. And granted, that's not exactly the biggest, hurdle to jump over at this point. It's been a bit of a slugfest getting to this point, but I think it is going to surprise people the longer it goes. So I can't wait to talk more about specific things going on in this one. But that's kind of my initial, first glance thoughts.
So I let me see where I start. So I did enjoy this movie a lot. I did not love this movie. I
Hmm.
and it's not like I'm looking forward to this conversation because I don't have like this particular thing that I can point out and say, okay,
Hmm.
this did not work. Like it's more of a general vibe for me, and I think
Right.
it goes into what you were saying, but the opposite thing actually. I also do not look forward to horror movies, and I
Hmm.
think this is what sunk it for me. That this felt too genre-ish or
Hmm.
um,
Right.
um, yeah, no, no, the whole vibe with like horror vibe, it's something that I need something extraordinary for me to get over.
Right.
So something like The Last of Us is something that I can look at and put
Hold on.
away the horror
Hold on. I
aspect
got
of it.
where's my shot glass because we was 6 minutes
Oh,
in
no,
and Miguel was able
no.
to drop a Last of Us thing. Gotta take a quick shot real quick, everyone. Miguel said The Last of Us, time to drink.
So my point is that even if in that show or that game, um, I am not a fan of the more horror specific
Right.
scenes or set pieces. Like
Hmm.
that's something that I need to get over to actually appreciate the rest. Um, something like also like completely different, like something like even Return of the King, where the I am not a huge fan of the spider scenes because that gets a little bit out of
In
my
that
comfort zone.
horror kind of level of
Yeah,
genre, yeah.
and so I can still love the movie despite that,
Hmm.
despite those scenes. Um, I did appreciate everything that Google was going for here, and I don't agree with you in that it just happened to be set in like
Hmm.
a world with vampires. I
Right.
think that this was precisely the point that um, this is a whole story about white people taking over and
Hmm.
feeding from black culture, and that
Hmm.
directly led to the introduction of vampires,
Hmm.
and like that felt
Yes.
very organic, let's say.
Yes. I
It did
guess
not feel,
my thought was that I didn't feel going like when I left the movie, I didn't feel like I left like a vampire movie as much as
okay,
I left like a Ryan Coogler original
yeah.
story. It was more of, versus when I go see maybe I don't know, I can't, I'm blanking on
I mean,
the movie that came out
in a
like
sense,
Nosferatu. Like I was very much left that going.
okay,
That was like the vampire movie
okay,
and this
that's
was
a perfect
that's kind of
example.
what I meant, I guess. So I
That's a
totally
perfect example for
understand.
me as well, because Nosferatu is also a movie that I think was technically like beautiful and brilliant,
Mhm.
but it's still the fact that it was like so gothic and so um
Mhm.
centered around this like genre specific this specific genre that took away my entertainment, my
Right.
enjoyment of it.
And
And
let's
I think
mhm.
that I enjoyed Sinners more than Nosferatu, but
Right.
still
Same.
the whole genre thing like took it away from me.
I so with the vampire, let's talk more about this is a direct tale of like maybe like white people, white culture bleeding, sucking into, taking away from
Yeah.
black culture. I thought it was really interesting to put this from the perspective of the vampire, especially with how they went about this, because you have like Remy, this vampire, and it's coming from a standpoint of like community. And you've been looking for freedom, you've been looking for community and love, and it's actually here. Like I'm the one that can provide it to you. And on the surface, like they are happy. Like these vampires, they seem to be happy. We know as the audience, like these are like demons that are now devoid of like souls, so to speak, right? but we know that, on the surface, that's what they appear to be. And the interesting part, like the layer underneath that I thought was interesting though, was yes, you can have all of this, but he also is going to take your memories and he's going to take like what's part of you. It's now part of him. And how it's still like the level of, oh, you can find all of this on the surface, but I'm still going to take you and make you mine in a sense. And I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it. I never really I haven't necessarily seen a lot of horror movies, but given the message that he was trying to say and using the vampire as a way to tell that with, I thought was very fascinating about how yes, there is this whole community with them and they all feel like they have belonging. But underneath all of that is still the level of control that Remy is seeking over over this group of people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of layers here, and I did follow some of them like while watching the movie, but like even after, like you can still
Mhm,
pinpoint a lot more that's going on. I did find the movie a little bit um rebellious at points, and even like uh too belligerent
mhm,
in what it was trying to say. Like even like fighting because basically what it was, I thought it was saying was like this is an us against them, and the fact that they try to sell you that this doesn't have to be an us versus them, and that
mhm,
we can work together. That's precisely the problem, and that in the end they're just lying to you, and
mhm.
they're just taking over your s- um your persona, um which is like I can understand that from a historic point of view, but at the same
Right.
time, like that's burning a lot of bridges, and
Mhm.
like while it is probably true, that is I don't know, it's hard for me to express exactly
Right.
what it feels like, because I mean we're like two Caucasian guys and we have no
Right.
idea of
Mhm.
the other
Well,
side, of course, but
taking in the context, 1930s America and what is going on like at this time for sure.
well, I mean,
And
sure, but I don't really think that he was specific to 1930s America. Like it's said there, but
Mhm,
I think
you're
this
right.
is history
Well,
repeats itself,
it's a
and
broader message than that, yes,
yeah,
but I think the core of this movie too was I think about like what freedom looks like. And Stack and Smoke think that they've found freedom, so to speak. But the Haley Steinfeld's character, she knows that, oh, you stole. There's your former gangsters that they've stolen from both sides. They're on a strict budget. They're not this thing's not gonna last. But this one night is their night, so to speak. And all of these people are kind of feeding into that because it's interesting that if you fast forward, to the end of the film, Stack is coming back. He's a vampire still, and he's coming back and he finds Jimmy, Preacher Boy. And before they leave, Jimmy says to Stack's vampire, he says, he still wakes up with horrors like of that night. But before that began, he said that was the best day of his entire life. And was it
yeah,
the same for you? And Stack said it was the same for him. So I thought it was fascinating that this was, you know, all this death, chaos, destruction, the calamity of all of this, but for multiple people in the story moving forward, that was the pinnacle of their entire life up to that point because of everything that was going on at and it's the story about like this freedom. But I love the fact that it's just the two brothers. They're like, you know what? We're just gonna open up a nightclub, and it's just gonna be for us. This is gonna be our
yeah,
personal place where we're free to be ourselves. We're free from whatever society is trying to put on us, and it exists like in the microcosm of the story that also the vampires are going to come and try to ruin it all under the guise of collectivism, I guess.
yeah. I mean, so speaking of like highs and things that we enjoyed, I think that first of all, and I'm probably gonna drop another Last of Us reference here, but so I think that the thing that I enjoyed the most, even above like and like I mentioned as well, like
Mhm.
Michael B. Jordan, who is like having the time of his life. And
Mhm.
I think Haley as well was electric, and also the kid that plays the preacher boy. I thought that he was
Miles Caton, I think.
yeah, he was extraordinary, especially for a first performance.
Mhm.
And who else is there? Like Delroy Lindo, I guess he was like also quite excellent. Even above all of that, I think that the thing that I enjoyed the most was that this felt so specific to Ryan Coogler and so like
Mhm.
um, speaking from his heart,
Mhm.
and like and you can actually see an artist like coming up with this message and conveying it through his
Mhm.
movie. And I thought the fact that you can notice the artistry and the personality behind a movie, and
Mhm.
not just like in style, but also substance.
Right.
Um, I thought that that was like my biggest takeaway and my favorite
Mhm.
part of the movie. Pretty much the same way I feel about, Last of Us being a true, like something that an artist came up with, and that this is
Mhm.
something that I need to say, and if I don't say it now, I will
Mhm.
probably die. And
Mhm.
you can feel that same thing
Mhm.
in how Coogler approached this whole thing, and of course, like he's working with Michael B. Jordan again, and that's like his muse and whatever, but
Mhm.
and it's like it comes like entangled with him, and it doesn't happen the same way without Michael B. Jordan there.
Mhm.
But still, that felt like Coogler saying, "I need to put this out in the world, and I need
Mhm.
to. This is something that I need to say."
I appreciate that because I 100% love the fact that we are getting a film like this in 2025 that's being well received by audiences. A lot of people are going to see it, and I think it's going to be culturally relevant for a long time. And it's not attached to any sort of IP. It's not a sequel to something. Like this is
Well, I
his
mean, it's supposed to be a new IP. It's supposed to start a new IP.
right.
They so
But
I
it's
don't
not
really.
attached to something that we've like seen before. It's like
Yeah,
it's
it's the first original
just this
blockbuster
original.
in a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
is. And I think that looking at the numbers, it's like uh, I can't like I think that the last time an original like blockbuster performed this well might have been like something like Get Out.
Mhm. It's been a minute.
I can't remember because I saw this like stat recently, but I cannot remember if there was something. I think it was like a Jordan Peele movie. I can't remember if it was Get Out, Us. I don't think it was Nope. I think Nope was performed a little bit worse.
I think it was probably I if I remember, I think Get Out was the one. If I'm my
Okay,
history, I remember
okay.
how many. This is just for my own like, anecdotally, like more people I felt like were talking about that I
No, but
heard like word of
what I
mouth,
mean
and
is like
then what happened.
numbers wise, like box office numbers, the last time a movie that was a fully original concept that did not come
Mhm.
from either a pre-existing
No, yeah, yeah,
IP
yeah.
or a story like that,
Mhm.
a biopic or
No,
whatever.
no, I'm agreeing with you from like Get Out or
Yeah,
Us
anecdotally, yeah,
or like Us. Like I think it was Get Out. It was mostly just because I remember between those two. Like I feel like that was just a bigger time
okay, I see, I
when I
got you.
remember listening
Yeah,
to. But it is
yeah.
happening, and
But
this movie could easily like I would love for them to re-release this, in October for Halloween and put it back out there and word of
I
mouth,
mean,
travels fast. I think people would go see it again, or if they miss it this theater run, like they go see it, and that could be something that could revive
I'm
it
gonna
again as well, bring it back into the culture.
check the calendar. I think that you may be onto something
I think I
for a
heard
couple of
something there was
reasons.
talks about this possibly already.
So yeah, IMAX is in talks to re-release this movie later in the year. So okay, I'm just checking the calendar here, and Warner Brothers doesn't have an early
Mhm,
October release date, and this is relevant. Let me check September just in case. No, there's no September either. So this is relevant because typically for Warner's. this early October window is the one that they use for Oscar launching.
Hmm.
So their big Oscar movie is the one that they launch in early October. So you
Hmm.
think back to A Star is Born, or you think back to Joker in 2019, or there are a couple other examples
Hmm.
recently as well. They don't have one this year. I think that I can't remember what their slate for this year. Oh, well, I guess they have this PTA movie in August with Leo
Hmm.
DiCaprio, but this could be an Oscar player if they can play it well. And I think that based on recent Oscar winners, they probably have a chance. Not at Best
Hmm.
Picture, but probably at some of the
Well,
some other
I was gonna ask
categories.
you, what nominations do you think they could receive? I think best original screenplay was something that came to mind for sure. Best
Yeah,
original song, I think that they have a great chance there with. But I was gonna ask you, which one do you think stands out more? I wrote down two. It was Travelin', which is what Miles Caton's saying at the towards the beginning when he's in the car with Stack and they're
yeah,
driving.
that's
He
a
starts
possibility.
playing and Stack looks at him like, "Oh my goodness!" And
Yeah,
then he kind of plays like a new version of that at the
yeah,
end. But I also love the one. It was like Pale. I think it was Pale Pale
yeah,
Moon, the one that they played with.
yeah,
I wrote Jane Lawson, like who played Pearline, saying, and that was
yeah,
just all these story beats are going on as she's singing that, and that one was just the way it all came together was fantastic. So I could see either one of those making a
yeah. I was
run
just
at
listening
that.
to that one yesterday. I think that I like that one quite a bit. There's also I think Nate pointed this out in the Discord. Like right after Pale Pale Moon, there was another one. Like I think this was the one that they sang among the vampires,
Mm,
which is also quite great. Let me pull up the name
yeah, I
here.
forget what that one was called. I know which one you're talking about though, but that makes sense.
Um,
I while
yeah,
you're
so
looking for that one.
Rocky
Oh,
Road to Dublin.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that one.
Uh, I could see that one. I mean, I don't know. You've had an embarrassment of riches here. So who knows? I think song, yeah, song is a possibility. Screenplay as well.
Hmm.
It's
Actor for
always
sure.
going to the actor. It's going to
You
depend
think?
on whatever comes after
Right. Supporting
in the year.
possibly. I so here's my question is like I was thinking about this. I think that there's a chance. I mean, could we see a best picture nom here?
Yeah, yeah,
I think that
I think
there's
so.
a good
I
chance.
think so,
It,
but I don't think that this will be a real player for this picture. I
mhm.
think that this is the I don't know what is another. No, Nope was not nominated for Best Picture, but like this semi-big blockbuster
Mhm.
that can get into, the Best Picture category, but doesn't really have a real chance. I guess Avatar could be like
Or do I was thinking like didn't Dune get nominated or whatever. But
Dune is a perfect
mhm.
example. Yeah, Dune Part Two. Yeah, because
Mhm.
it came out early in the year. The old buzz had disappeared by then, but still people remember that this was a good movie, so I should probably vote for it.
Mhm.
That is a good example. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Because
I
I would be if it doesn't get nominated, I not that I want it to get nominated, but I was thinking, I'm like, if there's 10 movies or 11, 12, we get to 12 movies that are better than this one this year, then I'm sitting pretty in next year because I'm like, this was a great year. If we get that many movies that are going to be better than what I saw, or I enjoy more, at least personally,
Yeah.
than what I saw, then I'm going to be thrilled.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this will end up ranking in my top 10, but maybe I'm too
Mhm.
optimistic about what's coming out later.
I already
Um,
know my number ones. It's I don't care what it is. It's Mission Impossible 8's gonna be my number
I know
one.
what your number
I
one
don't
is.
even care. I don't even have to go see it. I don't even have to go see it. They got Tom Cruise put a video on Twitter today, and it's just a little behind the scenes of how they made one of the stunts, and it's just going
Of
through a little
course.
bit of it, and the typical Mission Impossible, like that's what they do going in, and it's about the one I think where he's hanging on to the plane
Yeah.
and the scene that they're gonna, and I watched that. It was right before we hopped on. I watched that. And I'm already. It just amped me up right away. I'm already thrilled. But anyway, so no, I would love that for this one to get some love down the stretch, even next year. Maybe get another theater re-release. Before we move on to do Thunderbolts, we have a few other characters I want to talk about before we move on. But so Michael B.
Okay.
Jordan, are okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So
No, no,
Michael
go
B.
ahead.
Jordan, yeah, I think he's amazing in this. And it threw me off at first when you have the same guy, he's playing two different characters, the twins. I don't know how I feel about that in general. I feel like I'm usually kind of like, I don't really like this. And it kind of took me out of it for a minute when I first saw it. But ultimately, I think they really sold me on this. Like he was incredible, and I got to see more of the personalities and the different motivations for each of them as the movie got on. And I thought Michael B. Jordan was having, like you said before, like he was having the time of his life. I think in this
Yeah.
role, like he very much he shines brightly. But where are you at? Did that work for you at the end of the movie, or was it something that
So
you still struggled with?
so I think this is the one thing, I guess, like if we go through the entire movie, we can point out a couple others, but I think
Right.
this is the one thing that I can specifically point to, like this I had a problem with. And yeah, I do agree with you that at the beginning I thought it was like this is gonna throw me off the entire movie. I'm not gonna believe that it was like these two guys on screen. And after that, like those first 10 seconds, I was immediately sold. Okay, so I
Yep.
did not have a problem with either the VFX or the fact that he was playing both characters.
Okay.
Um, what I did have a problem with, and like this was, and I admit that this might be a me problem, but the fact that you have two guys who look exactly the same, whose first names are both start with an S, I had like such a hard time
And they're both
figuring out
5 letters.
which, yeah, exactly. So same number of letters, not exactly sounding the same, but like similarly with the
Mhm.
first letter S,
Smoke and
like
slack
I had such a hard time
or
figuring
stack.
out
Sorry.
who was with Haley Steinfeld and who was with Unmi Mosaku. Like I, I did not know what was going on. Like half the movie, I did not know like who each one was.
Mhm.
So I guess that this is a me problem, but yeah, like I would have pushed for another
Mhm.
name just
Mhm.
for like for, being
Just for the
more
ease of
able to watch the
watching.
movie. Like,
Mhm.
and I did at some point try saying, okay, so these ones were in blue and these ones were in like red, so
Right.
maybe that way, but still like my brain couldn't process all of it,
Well, yeah, because you're
properly.
watching, Smoke. He's orchestrating everything and telling his brother to do something, and then his brother's having sex with Haley Steinfeld's character
Yeah,
in the other room, and you're like, wait, no, yeah, okay, yeah, that's right that we're doing this. But I could see it, and I'm with you. It would have been, I think, as a rule of thumb for me, it's kind of like I hope that. Maybe we have two different people if we're playing twins, so to speak. It's the similar thing with not to bring up Star Wars, but the Acolyte, having Amanda Stenberg play Osha and May. And at
yeah,
times that was a similar problem for me when I'm watching, the Acolyte. There's a little different because they're not usually together and
exactly, yeah.
everything, but it's
And they
still
have
it still I
different
think brings a
haircuts
little bit.
most of the time as
Mhm.
well, and
But just
they
seeing that
did
even
behave
like the last
differently.
episodes, watching them together, it was kind of like,
But
I wish we maybe had something different. But this
but
was
at
a
least
little
in the
obviously much
Acolyte,
more extreme.
both personalities were very different. Here,
Right.
there were some differences, but at the same time, they had grown up together and they, both like as kids and also then in Chicago and whatever. So it was
Hmm.
like, yes, they're like two different spins on basically the same person.
Right.
And whereas in the Acolyte, like it was like completely different
Hmm.
characters. Like even if in something like Social Network, I guess if those two characters were more prominent, you would also have a harder time believing, like knowing which one
Right.
was each. So maybe that's not the best example. I don't know. I have to
Hmm.
like think about other good examples of like twin characters, but
Of course.
yeah, this was like the one problem that I did have. Like, like, is this guy cheating on Haley Steinfeld, or is like with Haley Steinfeld, or is he just the same guy who's supposed to be like? I did not know what to do. Of course, later you know, but you know, on the spot, you're like, who is he? Yeah.
No, I get it. Let's talk about Preacher Boy. Let's talk about Sonny. Miles
Okay.
Caden, I thought
Yeah.
was incredible, and I love the use of they use religion here as it's a very interesting way in which religion is used. He's the son of the preacher, and it's all about throughout the movie, like he's being called to let go of, what he's doing at night, playing music in these nightclubs and bars, and turn away from his quote unquote like sinning ways and come back, home, come back where it's safe. And he's even told by Smoke at the end of the movie, put that guitar down, go back home, make gospel, do all of this. And or maybe it's Smoke that tells him this, and he's like, you need to stop, like we got to stop doing this. And his choice to leave like his religion and leave what was familiar to him, which was the church and was home, and to go pursue like his life dream even after everything that he had already experienced. I thought it was like a really powerful way for his story to end, because when he came back, and even the way they introduced him coming back into the church at the end, with him having to be invited in, like he wouldn't enter into the church until his father, the preacher, invited him in, which is kind of like, turning like the parallel of the vampire not being able to enter where he's not welcome or allowed or supposed to be until he's invited in. And having Preacher Boy have the same thing happen, but he's in fact he's not necessarily entering his home and choosing anyway to leave. I thought that was a great way for his arc to end, and then ultimately end up with him having this reunion with Stack, and I forget Haley Steinfeld's character's name off the
Yeah.
top of my head right now, but at the end.
Um, I agree with everything you said. My biggest takeaway for this character, I think, was with the romantic relationship
Mhm.
with the young girl,
With Pearline,
which
I
I
think
thought,
was her name.
yeah, which I thought that was really sweet and and like very well brought into the screen. And you know, I did that was one of my favorite parts of the movie, that relationship, and
Hmm.
how both sweet and also like very sexy it felt.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I did like the character a lot, and the fact that this was basically like this is probably one of those characters that if he doesn't work, the whole movie falls apart. Like
Right.
feels weird to say with Michael B. Jordan playing twin characters, but I do think that a lot of the movie relies on him, and uh, the guy did it, so all props to
Hmm.
him.
Right. I mean, he's in a lot of ways, he's the heart of the story, and Michael
Yeah,
B.
exactly.
Jordan's character is the backbone of the story.
Yeah,
But he's the heart of this, and that her death too, when she dies, that was the most like sad
yeah,
moment for me of all of it, was seeing those two separated, because it felt like something
yeah.
really special. And like you said, it was very sexy. It was very like that relationship really captivates you and draws you in, because they both sell it so well. And then I think it's also because those are the two characters that deliver the most impactful musical performances that we see
Yeah.
for me, like and seeing him be like free of all of his like burdens before, and then seeing her like very much prim and proper at the beginning, and then just letting her own self out at the end with her song. So no, that was the death that got me for sure. But no, Haley Steinfeld, pleasantly surprised. I was like, I didn't know she like still brought chops like that. I thought she was awesome in her role. Like I did not,
But
I can't really say I've seen anything from Haley Steinfeld really before, outside of I know she was a character in the Hawkeye show, and that was fine, I guess. I never watched it, but I didn't know that like she sold me on her character. I thought that, she was pretty awesome, and I didn't really know like that she had
I
like
mean,
game, I guess.
uh, I guess we are on different sides of the spectrum here, because I did. I did know that she was like a great actress, and I don't know. I was not pleasantly surprised. I was just surprised there, not surprised. Like this was a perfect fit for me. Um, I had seen like a couple of years ago or something, like a collection of Haley Steinfeld's like Rotten Tomatoes scores, and it
Yep.
was like, you know, like made out to be like this may not be like super realistic, but it was made out to be like all of her choices were like uh, absolutely like critical darlings, where she was like everything that she signed up for like was at least a 90% on Rotten
Hmm.
Tomatoes. So I'm not quite sure to what extent that is true, but
Hmm.
the list was quite impressive. Of course, like she has done, voiceover in the Spider-Man movies, and she has
Right.
done something like Bumblebee, which is a little bit more like family friendly, so
Right.
maybe not
I
as
I
much
can't
as
say I've been very familiar with anything she's really done before.
yeah,
So so it was going in. I'm like, okay, I know who this person is. Like I know she
yeah,
is an actress. She's done. I've watched some of the voiceover things she's done before, and then as a big sports fan, like, oh, this is also she's also Josh Allen's like fiance. Like they're getting married, football player. And so like I hadn't watched her in anything that I recalled and was like, oh, she was amazing in that. So to kind of
yeah,
have that experience for the first time, like, oh, she is incredible. That was fun.
yeah. No, she's really good, and yeah, I don't know what else I had in mind for her. But yeah, I this was like when they were coming up with the cast for this, seeing her name here, I was very happy to see it, and I think that for me
Mhm.
she delivered exactly what I was expecting. So
Awesome.
yeah,
I
she
love that.
was sweet, and she was reassuring, and she was comforting whenever she needed to be, and also like quite fearful as well. But also
Mhm.
then when she turns, she is also. Um, she's also quite
And
well, first
terrifying.
of all, very sexy because
Mhm.
that scene when she has sex with Michael B. Jordan's character, like that started quite sexy,
Mhm.
and but also can be, I wouldn't say terrifying because like I was like never actually terrified of her, but uh, I did, much like Michael B. Jordan was having the time of his life, I also thought that she was
Mhm.
having so much fun, like portraying this
Terrifying from the
darker side of.
standpoint of if she invited me to become a vampire to go hang out, I might have walked out of the house for a
Exactly.
minute.
No, terrifying in that sense, yes. Like not terrifying in like the Nosferatu sense, but terrifying in that okay, so I will follow her, wherever
I
she
will
goes.
I will allow myself to become a soulless demon for eternity
Yeah,
at this moment in time. I think I'm
yeah.
there. I appreciated Slim's character in this because movies like this sometimes they can be so wound up and like so tight. Like I'm like tense the entire time, and you know, even because like you have a lot of the like the sexual scenes and the sexual moments. There's still that tension that exists there because of everything else going on, and then you have the horror aspect of it all. I really appreciated Slim's character because I didn't feel like the comedic aspects were super forced and they felt a little bit jarring. It felt natural and like allowed me to take a like let my like deep breath and okay, I can
Yeah.
release for a moment before I'm really just drawn right back in. And like one of the most emotional moments of the whole thing was when they're or tense moments is when they're having to all take the garlic and eat
Oh
the
yeah.
garlic to prove. And then he does his whole thing that it makes me laugh, and I'm like, okay, but this is one of the most intense moments because it's like, oh, it's one of them actually a vampire.
But it was like also comedic relief, like but like done properly, where you're like not taking away from the
Hmm.
tension from the
Right.
previous moment. You
Hmm.
just let that sink in, and after that, like it's quite a difficult balance to have
Hmm.
actually to like let the tension take over you, and then just not overplay it, and at that point you just can like some
Right.
relief and like drop some jokes or whatever.
Hmm. So Ludwig Göransson's been also kind of on a heater
Yeah.
lately. Like this guy has just been dropping banger after banger,
I
and
mean, talk about muses and like collaboration between director and artist, like
mhm,
Kugler and Ludwig, like are just you know the perfect match. Even
mhm,
I'd
absolutely.
say
And
even as good as Damien Chazelle and Justin Hurwitz,
you
almost
would
as
say
good.
so? You would say so?
I mean, I don't think that Ludwig has composed anything quite like the Babylon score yet, but
Mhm.
he's coming there.
I mean, what was the last few projects Ludwig's been? I mean, obviously he did Oppenheimer's original score. He's done
Yeah,
Sinners now, that has been
he did win the Oscar
incredible.
for Oppenheimer, did he not?
I believe he did. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he did. He 100% did. I remember him walking on stage
yeah.
and talking about it. And then I'm missing one. There's one in between all of
Can you say
these.
again?
That
Sorry.
well, it
Ah,
was
Tenet.
Oppenheimer. What?
Tenet.
What?
The previous Nolan movie, Tenet.
Oh, okay. Okay. There we go. So, okay. I was like, I know I'm missing a few. I think I'm probably missing something else that I'm forgetting right off the top of my head. But no,
So which
he's on
ones were the
heater.
ones you listed? Sorry.
Well, I said Oppenheimer, obviously, and then I said Sinners, and you mentioned Tenet, but I feel like I was missing another big
Ah, the
one that
Black Panther
happened.
movies.
The Black Panther movies, okay, yes, of course. So, and then obviously he did seasons 1 and 2 of Mando too. I mean, he delivered
Yeah,
us Mandalorian theme. So, he's been on
yeah.
a heater for the last several years. He's awesome, and I just wanted to mention that real quick before, we moved on. Do you have anything else to say about Sinners, or you want to dive into before we move on to Thunderbolts?
Um, just that I hope that the cultural moment that it seems to be having in the US can actually transfer into box office dollars,
Mhm.
because those numbers are good but not great, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be super profitable for them. So I
But
do think that there is like quite a moment
mhm,
here, momentum wise. But
mhm,
first of all, it's not happening as much internationally. And
mhm.
like I've been like telling about this movie, like mentioning this movie to a few people, and none of them know what
I've
it
seen it.
is over here.
Mhm.
And not even seen it, like not
Just even are
heard of it.
aware.
Yeah.
So
And
I have a question for you, because
yeah.
and this is like a quick aside before we get into the deeper like discussion about Thunderbolts, but just in box office, the word profitability, that it's thrown out there so much nowadays, and I don't even know if we have an idea of how to quantify profitability for a movie. Like I think it's been doing very well, all things considered, the box office like exceeded expectations. This movie, I feel like, is going to be, because of the world of streaming nowadays. Like, what does profitability mean? Like, what does this look like when it's put on like HBO, or what does it look like on like VOD if it's re-released in theaters for Halloween? People, could be watching this in, like, if hotel rooms have movies on like on demand, or airports, like, or like airplanes, movies that are streaming that they pay for to have like on long flights. Like, I don't know, this movie, I feel like, is going to be culturally relevant for a while. I think it's going to, like, there's a moment here I think is going to last. But I think without, in this new era, we're still trying to figure out what profitability like really looks like. And the movie's been out for what, 3.5 weeks, like 4 weeks, and I only think that over time it's going to grow and get bigger. Like in 10 years, like how much are they going to have generated revenue wise from people like paying to stream it on their platform or have it over here for a while? Like, I don't, it's so weird to have this conversation about profitability, but there are obviously clear wins and losses sometimes in the box office. I just wonder if we black and white it
I
too
mean,
much without thinking about some of the nuance with a project like this, because I kind of want to just almost like, I feel like it should just be celebrated that we have a movie like this without having been attached to anything really before do so well in the first few weeks.
no, absolutely.
Mhm.
I'm not saying
Right.
otherwise. I'm
Right, right, right.
celebrating it. I am just hoping that it makes more money than it
Mhm.
is doing. Um, and I do think that perhaps this is also as, an explanation, not an explanation, sorry. that it means that we live in a bubble because we're seeing this momentum that is not being transferred as much, I don't think.
Mhm.
And yes, profitability does mean a different thing. And it does, like, there are many ancillary markets that this is going to profit from,
Mhm.
whether it's, pay-per-view or whether it is, streaming rights or whatever. But when you compare apples to apples, uh,
Right.
and you say and the measure of how a movie is like how movie performs for the studio has always been
Right.
box office and boxofficemojo.com, and that's
Of course.
basically uh, how the studio measures how well this movie did. And
Mhm.
I think that at the end of the day, this is going to be profitable, but this is not going to make uh, hand over fist money. This is
Right.
at least at the box office. And yeah, it's probably going to be re-released later in the year. It's probably going to make like 30 more million dollars or whatever. But I don't think that this movie is going to reach 500 million uh, like an actual cultural event would have felt. So
Mhm.
let's say this. So I know this is like not even apples to apples
Right.
because like
Okay.
Sinners has been released for like 3 weeks and this movie has been out for many years. But and another, particular reference for me is La La Land. You know how much
Okay.
money La La Land made?
I have no idea. I'm gonna guess not much or a ton. One of the two.
Guess.
I feel like oh my gosh. I have
Okay,
not.
so I'm
I
gonna
have
tell
only.
you.
I never. I didn't go see. Domestically or
No, globally. I'm talking like globally.
200 million.
It made almost 450,
Okay. Okay. I yeah, I
which
do.
is, I
I'm
think,
not okay. It's not a musical guy necessarily. I like musicals. I think more now than I
yeah,
did when La La Land came out. But that feels
I
a lot
don't,
bigger than what. Obviously, I did not think that. So it feels a lot
I
bigger than
don't think that Sinners is going to reach La La Land money.
what is it right now? Like 300.
It's as of this recording, it is at 283,
Okay.
and uh, of which 76% is like in the US. So I think that the
Hmm.
problem is clear. The problem is that it's not being promoted properly outside the US.
Hmm.
And I think
Okay.
that's where so let me actually give you the exact number for La La Land, which is actually no, it's a bit more. I guess it was released recently. It's 500.
Okay.
It was
Way
at
off.
151 domestic and almost 360 internationally. So La La Land did not feel as big of a cultural event as
Hmm.
Sinners did, and yet numbers are numbers, and you know
Hmm.
I
Numbers
don't
are
know,
numbers.
but La La Land still like music, heavily music related, heavily original concept. You know,
Hmm.
uh, two stars in the lead with supporting characters,
Right.
whatever. Like I think there are parallels here. Of course, it's not the best parallel because you could also argue that La La Land is based on jazz, which is it comes heavily from black culture, and this movie is like heavily uh, arguing against that. So maybe it's not the best example in this particular case, but at the same time,
Maybe
numbers are
not.
numbers.
Hmm.
And my point is that they need to promote this movie internationally, and
Hmm.
they need to like
Hmm.
get money from the UK or
That
Germany or whatever.
that makes sense. No, I hope it does because I really want this movie to succeed, and I want more movies like this that aren't the these big heavy IPs. I think there's so many people I think that are like clamoring, oh, we need something that isn't a franchise in this. Well, we got to go see it whenever it happens
Yep.
for this to continue. So let's go ahead. Let's transition now into Thunderbolts. Don't have a ton of time left here, but we can have plenty of a discussion on Thunderbolts. This was the first MCU movie that I feel like I really enjoyed since Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I had a fun time with Guardians 3. And obviously, that's not that long ago, but when you think about how many MCU movies come out every year, there's always three or four. That's quite a bit. had a really fun time here. I thought Jake Schreier was a great pick for the story that they were trying to tell here. I was optimistic when I saw that his name was attached possibly to an X-Men film that's, in the works. I think that he would be able to take a lot of what he does best and attribute it to the X-Men, and that's an interesting movie to talk about in another podcast because of just how many X-Men reboots there have been and what that might look like in the MCU world. But Florence Pugh, David Harbour, they're when they're on screen together, their scenes together, absolutely phenomenal. Like I was completely sold and bought in on everything that they were doing. And I think Florence Pugh is obviously just a world class, one of the best out there right now. I think she elevates every single project she's in. So the fact that she is now possibly one of the new faces of the MCU, I think is both great for Marvel, but I think also really interesting for Florence Pugh because I'm wondering, is she going to spend the next, you think of like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Tom Holland to a degree, spending 8 to 10 years just pumping out like movies and projects like this? Is that really like the next phase of her career? Because I feel like she's done so many other things. I think that's an interesting talking point after this movie. But I really enjoyed this. I was pleasantly surprised that I had this much fun with this film. What about you?
I was also pleasantly surprised by this. I was expecting to enjoy it. I was expecting that this was going to be a bit of a deeper MCU film than
Hmm.
at least the more recent outings were. I was not expecting that I was going to enjoy it as much and that it was going to be as heavy into the mental health issue
Right.
and all of that as it was. I was not expecting that the entire third act would be like a mental health struggle. Like
Hmm.
it was basically Inside Out 2, but done right.
was that was that a jab at Inside Out 2 or a jab at me for loving Inside Out 2? Or both?
It was a jab at Inside Out 2. That movie was not very good. Sorry.
No, I know that you feel that way. Yes. I'm
Yeah,
aware.
I'm sorry, but it is. Anyways, in terms of so okay, we can do the X-Men conversation another time. I'm still not super in love with that pick. I still
Mhm,
think that Jake Schreier. I still think that the most of the heavy lifting in this movie was done by the script,
mhm,
and and that the personality that Jake Schreier brought to the screen was not felt as much. This is a pretty generic looking movie, and yes, there are some sequences that are quite impressive in how they were pulled off, but I'm still not
mhm,
super sold on this, and maybe I'm just misjudging this, and this was mostly his
mhm,
doing. But yeah, in terms of like visually, I thought that this movie needed a bit of a push.
mhm.
And maybe that's just the cinematography, like
It
I'm
was
just missing the
I
point. That,
could see you there on the cinematography piece. I think
yeah,
where he shined was I think he was able to do a great job of pulling out the some of the performances from all the some of the other characters about the loneliness struggle and being unable to escape, maybe the horrors of your past or what's going on, upstairs and feeling, like a loser, feeling uh alone, feeling out of the loop, feeling desperate for, some companionship, but feeling like no matter what you do, you're never going to be able to move forward. I think he was able to pull some of those performances out and make some of these characters that I had no interest in coming in like really shine in a way that like surprised me. Like Russell's character, like the I forget his name, like U.S. agent or whatever. Like I
yeah.
really didn't care about him at all after the Captain America show, like whatever it was, Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Didn't really care too much. I actually feel like I care about this character now, and a lot of it I think had to do with what Schreier was able to work with the actor and then bring out of this performance. Visually, I agree. It's not the
So
most
okay,
appealing MCU movie, but it didn't
interesting.
take me out of it like Captain America did, like visually.
No,
Like
no, no.
that one I
Same.
was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, same. But and maybe it's also like it had this like office, like not the office, but like office, gray office
Mm,
looking color
like
palette.
mundane.
Yeah, and maybe that was like in the what they were going for the like very somber and very, depressing tone that they wanted to achieve with this, perhaps, but still, I don't know that they quite got there for me.
Mhm.
Um, Interesting thing about Wyatt Russell, because I think this is the perfect example to illustrate my point. I wasn't as sold on his character as you were,
Yeah.
and I wasn't as sold on his performance, and didn't feel as much for. Yeah, definitely more than in the Captain America show, but Florence Pugh is an actress who, at this point, can pretty much like run the shop on her own.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think that there was, yeah, probably like Jake helped a little bit, but I don't think there
Hmm.
was much that
Right.
he could say as a director that would push Florence Pugh over the edge at this
Right.
point. Like, she's such a great actress at this point that I don't think there's much for the director to do, especially in a Marvel movie where they're
Of
just like
course.
rotating chairs.
I agree.
Same for David Harbour. Not that he's on the same level as an actor, but like his performance is like so comedic specific, and he basically did the same thing on Black Widow that I can just see, uh, David Harbour saying, "Okay, I got this. Don't have to worry about
Hmm.
me. I'm just gonna do my thing, and it's like it's not really gonna matter. Like
Hmm.
apart from a couple of very specific character beats that maybe the director did have a say in,
Hmm.
most of it is like dropping jokes and saying things in a Russian
Hmm.
accent. But it is with the character of like the U.S. agent and also the ghost character that I was feeling something missing. And
Hmm.
perhaps it was the director, perhaps it was like those two characters weren't as well written as.
Right.
Well, I do think that White Russell was well written. I don't think that. I think that the difference there was the performance. I do think he's a good actor. I don't think he is a great actor yet.
Hmm.
And perhaps that difference would not have been felt with a better director. That
What did
said,
you think?
I'm not.
Go for it.
I'm being too strict on him. I do think that he did a good job overall. I'm just
Hmm.
not super sold
Hmm.
on him doing X-Men. Go ahead.
No, I like what you said there because David Harbour specifically, this is funny because it's like he's not even a real dad. Like they're not even like actual relationship, and then you get
Yeah,
used to the comedic beats and he's so funny. Like he does a great job being
yeah.
exactly what
No,
he
no,
needs
he
to
is.
be. But then whenever him and Florence have like an actual emotional scene together where they have to they drop he drops the veil of using the humor to mask certain things as well, but and then they actually have those moments, and it surprises me personally just how well they like those moments come across as genuine and real, and I think that's all because of those two people. Like I don't think you could just take two actors, put them in there with that script and in this story, and it would come across as genuine and emotional as it does. But between the two of them, it's dare I say maybe like my favorite relationship in the MCU right now, just in terms of two characters
Oh,
on
really?
screen together. Like
Okay.
and that's not maybe saying a whole lot given how in flux the MCU is and still trying to
Yeah.
find like its new, group of people. But like those two, just I enjoy every moment that the two of them were on my screen.
I guess don't really have an immediate answer as to what my favorite relationship in the MCU right now is. I guess like you can
That
always
was just something
say,
I
you know,
wasn't
uh,
coming in going like, oh, I'm going to say that, but
yeah, yeah, of course, but you can always say like Holland and Zendaya, like those two are pretty great. But I guess
Mhm.
there are no more because like they deleted his memory. I don't know. Anyways,
Right.
um, what was
Now, what about
um,
Harrison
the,
Ford and his agent Russell or President Ross and his daughter? Is that your favorite relationship in the MCU? Right.
so my new favorite thing in the MCU is how they come up with a different president every 3 months. Like,
The U.S. political system is just in shambles. Every MCU movie, we
yeah,
it's just in shambles because we have a new
it's just
president
like
or a new director of whatever company is in charge of trying to help prevent a global disaster.
second of all, speaking of politics, who I guess that so who in the right mind voted for something in the US is perhaps not the best question right now, but who in the right mind would have voted for Bucky as was it senator or congressman?
It's funny you say that because when you think of like why Bucky might
Charisma,
have a
he
chance
doesn't
of
have
winning
any.
though, but like you could easily see how someone like Bucky gets voted as a senator in the US, like for US culture, because of especially right now and the rise of like this populist movement. Like that's how Trump got elected is you have this big, raging
Yeah,
populist
yeah,
movement. And then even the ancillary like part of that, it's like the rise of populism and so like someone like Bucky being an agent for Russia and the USSR like killing Kennedy, all of that can get washed under the veil when you think about what a Bucky
no,
senatorial
no,
campaign would look like, though, because of
I'm not
everything.
going there. I'm not going there. Where I'm going is that this guy doesn't have any charisma or anything to say about anything.
But
So the
he
one,
doesn't. I guess he doesn't have to because they put a few action shots of him saving the world a couple of times. He maybe
I
does
guess
cool
so.
moves with his vibranium arm. He's got probably being a former Avenger, he might have like a really good team around him. I imagine Bucky is maybe, and you get this narrative spinning about. I'm sure they have some great thing like some Avengers tied theme to him of like we have to
I guess so. I don't know.
avenge the fallen from the blip and avenge the country for this, like they have some sort of cheesy line. And then Bucky might be, maybe this is where he shines, like in like that one-on-one setting, like he's going and he's in like that town hall, he's just having these one-on-one conversations with someone. Maybe he's like a genuine person in that sense. Or people are, let me ask you this. You think the average American sees their voting ballot, sees former Avenger Bucky Barnes or Joe Scott Randolph from this other place, this boring person, like they're probably voting Bucky Barnes just because, oh, that's cool. Like that's how most Americans go about this. It's like, who's the
I
person
guess
I've
so.
heard of? Like who's the person I've heard of? And do I
And
think they're
that's
cool? I
how
feel like that's how
Kanye will
most
be
people make their
president.
decisions. I'm just
Yeah, I
it's
don't
messed
know.
up.
It's just that the one time that they had a camera on his face, like he was just, speechless and didn't really
Oh, right.
know what to say other than concerning and what was it, like worrying, or what
Right.
was the other
Well,
word that
maybe he thought that the job would be a little bit more, intense than it actually was because he's like, read the packets, Bucky. On the campaign trail, maybe it might be a little bit different on the
I guess
campaign
so.
trail. What did you think
Anyways,
of Louis Pullman's
Louis Pullman,
performance
yeah.
as Sentry? And I think that's a good one. I thought he brought a really unique energy to this that made it was very unique seeing how he like was a different represent he how what he represented in that mental health struggle and how parts of him are seen in each of the other members of the group as well, but he kind of embodied all of that. But I thought he was really good. And wasn't he like a late addition to this movie? Like wasn't like
So
someone else attached to it? That's right.
Stephen Young was supposed to be Sentry, but he had to drop out because of scheduling. And I think
Hmm.
this was like one of those genuine scheduling conflicts that
Hmm.
like because the movie was pushed uh, because of script rewrites that he had to go and he couldn't make it. Have you
Okay.
seen this Apple show called Lessons in Chemistry?
No, I have not.
So it's an Apple show that came out a year and a half ago with Louis
Hmm.
Pullman and Brie Larson. And I saw that back then, and I thought, I mean, Brie Larson is like excellent in that show, but so is Louis Pullman.
Hmm.
And so I was not surprised when he was able to give a pretty remarkable performance in what I thought he did here. And but I do think that you may have a point here in that perhaps like this was also Jake Schreier's doing, that he is a very good actor, but he's not super experienced yet. So
Hmm.
perhaps it requires a good director that brings out
Hmm.
in him what he did here, which was yeah, very like a lot of heavy lifting he had to do.
Right.
Um, Not just in the third act, which yeah he did, but also like all across the movie. Whenever he was on screen, he was always very enigmatic, but also like
Hmm.
carrying this burden that we find out later what it is all about, and you can
Hmm.
feel that something's wrong, just like
Hmm.
Yelena did, but you can
Right.
still not say
Hey,
precisely what
babe.
it was.
We're talking about Thunderbolts. I know you have things to say here. This Janela's made an appearance on the pod, so there she is. No, so no, I thought Lewis Pullman was fantastic because in a way I was completely sold on his performance because the I did not anticipate the last the final battle, so to speak, was to be fought entirely in his mind essentially,
Yeah,
and that was not. I was expecting, the typical Marvel formula
yeah,
of we're barely going to hint at maybe the what this movie is trying to say about mental health, and then we're just going to have, all right, we're going to use all our powers to come up with one random way to stop him, or someone's going to do like a Natasha Romanoff to the Hulk. The sun's getting real low there, Sentry. Like, calm down a
yeah.
little bit and bring him out of it. But instead, they kind of went they could have maybe gone a little deeper, but from a Marvel standpoint, they said we're gonna go all in on this is a battle inside of his mind and how he's gonna be able to find like his own personal like inner light again.
Yeah, I mean, if you like thinking back on it now, I probably should have seen this coming, but I did not because I was thinking like throughout the movie, like especially like when the third act starts and he just goes like full
Mhm.
black. So how are they going to stop him? Because they clearly cannot overpower him,
Right.
and the kill switch was like gone instantly.
It
So
doesn't work anymore.
like, what do they have? Uh, that they can actually,
Hmm.
take him down. And and like thinking back on that, I should probably have seen it coming, but I did not. And because of that, the experience was so much better for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Did I no, I agree with that because it's not something I guess we're accustomed to is
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
MCU, especially as of late, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about so I personally I'm a big Seinfeld fan, of course, and Julia Dreyfus
Mm.
is, you know, a favorite of anyone in America that loves Seinfeld. I've never really been sold on her as Valentina.
No,
Like I don't know what it is. It just falls flat for me, and some of the motivations there don't really hit home. I thought she was fine. There, it wasn't something that I was upset. And it didn't, offend me watching, but I wasn't exactly sold and
I
haven't
mean,
been.
she is probably the best and biggest comedy actress out there, like between Seinfeld and Veep.
Right.
And you never saw, I think that this is the most screen time she's had, right? I don't
Mhm.
think she's had like uh, more time on screen than she
Right.
did in this
She's
movie,
been
and
in. She's
this
kind
was
of
not.
popcorned in.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think, yeah, you never saw that side of Julia
Mhm.
Louis-Dreyfus that you saw in Veep or you saw in Seinfeld.
Do you think it's because
Uh,
of like that's TV and this is film, like very different
no, I think that she
things? Do you
was
think it
just
has anything to
phoning
do with
it in.
that, or is just the way it was? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she was like her material was not the best either.
Mhm.
She was a kind of like
Mhm.
almost like Monster Sterling kind of
Mhm.
villain, and
Mhm.
she did not have much to go for here.
Mhm.
And I think it's that uh, combined with the fact that she didn't care as much.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I do like before I forget it, I do have something more to say, and we should probably wrap this up soon. But
Yeah. I have to go in like
um,
I have 6 minutes
okay,
before I have to
I
leave.
was I was completely bothered by the fact that they called this movie Thunderbolts and they dropped the name all across the movie, and they never mentioned that there was a guy who they nicknamed Thunderbolt. First of all, not only president in the MCU like a
Oh,
couple months ago, but also like turn into the Red Hulk,
Hmm.
and they never even come close to mentioning that. Like,
Well, it was
just why?
it was the whole soccer team thing,
Yeah, but like,
I thought that was funny.
you're selling this movie. Like, I don't know. It's just
I
like,
thought I was fine. I thought it was fine. But what do you think about the new name though? Afterwards, the new Avengers and then the tie-in, the post-credit scene, of course, to the Fantastic Four arrival.
I don't like the name. I preferred Thunderbolts, to be honest. And I did like let me go back to the scene later, but in terms of the name,
Hmm.
I like that they made fun of the fact that it wasn't really like what they should be calling themselves, because
Right.
it's not really they're not really the Avengers.
Right.
So because of that, I mean, I like that they're aware of it. At the same time, I don't think the name works because of the reasons that they're explaining.
Right.
So yeah, I don't love it. What do you think?
Well, I I laughed when they had it. And, they bring David Harbour in to kind of explain how these aren't supposed to be the Avengers. By we're the Avengers with a Z because it's not copyrighted yet. Because Sam Wilson has tried to he's copywriting the Avengers for himself, and then you have that. Oh, okay, he's already assembled his team of Avengers like off screen, which we kind of knew he was going to be doing. It's kind of weird that we kind of get that in a post-credit
Yeah,
scene where it's like Sam's not on board and his team isn't on board, sort of thing. It's kind of weird that that's just a throwaway line in a post-credit scene from Marvel, and that's something that they actually want to take a little time to maybe do in some feature film of theirs. But I understand we're moving forward and we got other things. It's
yeah.
not exactly relevant to what they're trying to do. It was fine for me. And then I kind of saw the whole Fantastic Four thing, coming because I'm like, that's the next big movie. They got to do some sort of tie-in. I didn't find it like offensive or anything. It was just all right, we move on. We're gonna all forget about this in 2 months anyway.
I mean that's more of a doomsday tag than it is Fantastic Four. I mean, it is a tease of Fantastic Four because it's coming like
Right.
in a couple months, but that scene is probably going to be like the same way that the Thor Ragnarok scene played just before Infinity War, that this scene is the equivalent of that, I think. Or,
Right.
how Captain Marvel had
Hmm.
an Avengers Endgame
Hmm.
scene. I was spoiled that this was going to be a Fantastic Four scene because in the credits, and this is what I wanted to say before, in the credits, when they play the songs, they list all the songs that they played, and the
Hmm.
last one is the
Is the
Fantastic Four theme by Michael Giacchino. And you're like, wait a minute,
that
I did
hasn't been
not
here?
hear. Yeah, so
Wait 5 seconds, please.
exactly. So I was like just waiting for that moment to happen.
Hmm.
Yeah, a bit of a um, how do you call it? Like an pretty much an unavoidable error. Let's call it
Hmm.
that. So
Right.
the
What do you
uh,
last because
yeah,
I got like 2.5, 3 minutes here. I want real quick. So this movie felt like Florence Pugh. We're gonna put her out there. She's by far, she's the
oh yeah,
face of
yeah,
Thunderbolts. It would appear that she's one of the new big faces of Marvel. Just the way that
yeah,
this movie comes out. That just feels both as a Marvel, someone who likes to go see a big Marvel movie. That's exciting because I think Florence Pugh. There's the list of people I think that are better, and I'm more inclined to go watch a movie than right now over Florence Pugh. It's small. It's not a big list. But I
yeah.
also am like, is she someone that I feel are we going to be deprived of other possible masterful performances from her because maybe she's spending the next 8 years of her life or 6, 7, 8 years diving into Marvel deeply. Like, is she going to be, like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth? I mean, these people were doing so many Marvel projects that it open up a lot of avenues for them outside of that, unless they wanted to just be 24/7 busy.
No, I don't think so. First of all, this isn't a role that requires a lot of preparation and a lot of investment in. I think that she spends in this character exactly the number of days that production requires.
Mhm.
So I don't think that, and like even though we've seen her a number of times, like, how many projects has she been in? Like
Mhm,
she was in Black Widow, she was in here, and she
mhm.
was in the Hawkeye series. I don't think been
I
in
didn't even know
many
she's in the
more.
Hawkeye series. I'll be honest. Like,
Yeah, she
was
like shows up for a couple episodes, like not
mhm,
much more than that. And yeah, she's gonna be in the Avengers and whatever, but I don't know. I wouldn't worry too
mhm.
much about that. I think that
Okay.
she has enough going for her that she's going to
Mhm.
win an Oscar within 5 years.
I she's amazing. Everything she's in, like I said before, it elevates every
Yeah,
project that she's in. I don't think this movie sniffs being as good as it is without her, for
yeah.
sure. So let's see. Next episode, few weeks. Obviously, it's Mission Impossible time. Like it is time. Like I can tell you right now, like as much we talked about Sinners for 45 minutes. There is no telling. I could do a 5-hour live stream on how much I love Mission Impossible, diving into every single one of them and in the new movie. So I am so excited to do Mission Impossible 8 Final Reckoning in just a couple of weeks. I will be purchasing my IMAX ticket. I just got to figure out the schedule because I want to go see it opening night, but we also have Star Wars News at Live. So I'm like, do I find, do I cancel out a night or do I just go the next day? I'll probably maybe just try that for that Friday instead. But I cannot tell you the overwhelming excitement and joy that I'm going to have watching Tom Cruise on the IMAX doing his thing as Ethan Hunt for maybe the final time. We'll see. You never know. Probably not, but we'll see. I
That's
Their words cannot
probably yeah.
contain my excitement. So I'm excited to talk about that with you. Is there obviously you're probably looking forward to Lilo and Stitch a little bit more than Mission Impossible 8, naturally.
I don't think that's true though. No, it's Mission Impossible and then everything else. I
Yes.
don't think there's much else other than Lilo and Stitch coming out this
Hey,
month though.
don't sleep on Karate Kid Legends, for us Cobra
Oh
Kai
yeah, I saw
fans.
the trailer
It's
yesterday. Or
like the
yeah,
same
yesterday.
weekend,
Yeah.
actually. But so
Well,
I'll probably see that. That'll be one I see like maybe on a random Tuesday afternoon sort of thing. Like a week
I
later, 2 weeks
don't
later.
think I will be seeing that one.
No, it's not. I didn't think that was a movie that would be calling your name for sure. But anyway, go ahead and like and subscribe, everyone. Thanks for hopping in and listening to this. You can check it out Apple and Spotify at Star Wars News Net. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe, let us know. We're on every Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, talking about Andor season series finale this week, final arc of Andor. And I can't believe that you're sitting across from me on the screen and you haven't seen an episode yet, but I know you're going to be binging it all this week. I cannot wait. We'll have to do a whole deep dive review of all of that. Luke and I are going to be having another episode of the Timeline Show out very soon. I'm excited to say that we'll be interviewing Revenge of the Sith novelization artist James Caan, who's also written a bunch of other things, like for Star Trek. He wrote the novelization of like Poltergeist, Raiders, or sorry, not Raiders, Temple of Doom, like other projects like that. So really excited to interview him here in a couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about his memoir, his Jedi memoir that he is releasing this summer. Everyone, for Light and Life, remember that we are all the Republic, even those of you trapped in the Vampire Sinners cinematic universe. Until next time, Miguel, appreciate you.